not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Okay, it's a State of the Wolves Monday here on Flagrant Howls. Was it a moral victory last night? We can debate and dissect for the next half hour. We'll go through our categories here. A shout out to Brixworth in the North Loop. Brixworth is it has become kind of the place to go. My Wolves fan friends on the ground are saying for pregame activity before Wolves games at Target Center, maybe even postgame and even road games too. You can go get that signature Naz Reid hazy IPA, eat some of the best dry rub, creatively seasoned wings in town, Detroit style pizza, and it's just a couple blocks away from Target Center. Steps away. You can even maybe park for cheaper down by Brixworth and then just walk up to the arena for the game. But yeah, they brew their own craft beer also at the OG location in Burnsville. And so yeah, beer drinkers, I think you guys know about Brixworth. Fantastic place. But for wing eaters and Detroit style pizza enjoyers, I would also throw you into this. If you've not been to Brixworth, check them out in the North Loop. And a few steps away from Brixworth is Element Hotel. So maybe you're coming in from out of town, checking out the Wolves, or you just want to, maybe families in town, friends, whatever it is, or you're looking to plan a gathering, a bachelorette party, or you just want to have a fun night in the big city. Element Hotel, a Marriott Bonvoy hotel for points purposes, super walkable to some of the best places in and around the Twin Cities, the downtown Minneapolis area, and walkable to Target Center and Target Field. City views, perfect rooms if you're just flying solo or bringing the whole crew along. It's a great spot. Element Hotel, 15% room rate discount when you go to scorenorth.com/element, scorenorth.com/element. Dex, you were in the house last night for that thing went till like midnight.
Yeah.
If there was a moral victory column, in like hockey has moral victories. If you lose in overtime, you get a point. They didn't go to overtime last night, but I don't know. Do you guys give us the overview and we can throw this game into the discussion?
Sure. So here's your State of the Wolves situation. So 31-27, they've lost back-to-back games coming out of the break. They're seventh now in the West. If you take a look at the standings, they are a game out from the top six, being the sixth seed. Right now, the Timberwolves and Mavs, Warriors, all are just a half game separated. So the 7, 8, 9 seed is just a half game separation between the Wolves and the Warriors and the Mavs. The Timberwolves are now, let's see here, what did I have? 12th in offensive rating. 12th in offensive rating. They've actually gone up in offensive rating over the last few days. They're now 6th in defensive rating. They have a 60% chance to make the playoffs, according to ESPN, an 87% chance to make the playoffs per Basketball Reference. And if the playoffs started today, the Wolves would still host those Mavericks in a play-in situation. They're both 31-27, so tiebreaker-wise, I think the Wolves technically would get that home game, but they have only won 4 of their last 10 games, including losing back-to-back games, and yes, maybe a moral victory loss last night against a loaded Thunder team. So vibe check. Let's get with the vibe check here. Judley, do you want to give us a vibe check to start us off?
Sure I will. Wolves vibes are, and this is big picture, inopportune. The last 2 games, they have dropped them, both against good opponents, in clutch time again. They are now 15-21 in clutch games, which the National Basketball Association defines as a game within 5 points with 5 minutes left or less in the game. And actually last night at exactly that mark, OKC was up by 5 points. And I believe that they hit a basket at like 4:59 left. But anyway, Wolves vibes are, unfortunately, because they're playing close games. It's not like they're being blown out. And in the OKC game last night, which, by the way, I think the most impactful loss in that game was not Julius, not necessarily Dante. Rudy definitely hurts, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But I think the loss of Jaylen Clark was enormous. Jaylen Clark was playing lights out. Now, first of all, he was bringing offense, which is a bonus. But that dude can play defense, and he takes great pride in that and was playing outstanding. Hits his head, goes out. I think the Wolves might have been up by 5 when he departed. It was not the same game after. So certainly some unfortunate luck here, but when you look at the big picture, 15-21 in clutch time, inopportune because the Wolves, if you give them, let's say, 5 more wins in those games, are sitting in pretty good shape right now.
Yeah, I'll piggyback and say Wolves vibes are very feisty because the context of these last, for sure, couple games, but even if you go out further than that before the All-Star break, Gobert's been out now 3 straight games. Julius Randle, DiVincenzo, both huge minutes eaters and productive players in your rotation. By the way, I think it was Shams came down with a report yesterday. Those guys might come back on the road trip here. They got a bunch of road games sprinkled out the next couple weeks. So there's a whole conversation about, and we dove into it a little bit last Friday on Feedback Friday of, okay, you're going to get all 3 of these dudes are going to come back, and what does that look like? Hopefully it means they can still find 18, 20 minutes for Jaylen Clark, who's been ridiculous. But the clutch time stuff is absolutely a discussion, even when they are full strength. On the season, per 100 possessions, the Wolves are the 3rd worst clutch time net rating team in the league. So while the Cleveland Cavs in clutch time are a plus 45 points net per 100 possessions, which is ridiculous, the Wolves are a minus 21 points per 100 possessions in clutch time. And the only 2 teams worse are the Jazz and the Wizards. And the teams above them are the Hornets and the Raptors and the chronically injured 76ers. So it's like all these tanking and garbage teams and the Wolves, who are really, really good until you get to certain parts of the fourth quarter. But then, like the last couple of games and last night in particular, you add in the layer of all the guys who've been hurt. They've played Oklahoma City now, and they're going to get them tonight. After both these teams landed like well after midnight, and now they, I don't know, sleep till 10 a.m. or whatever, and they play each other again tonight. But the reason I say feisty is because they've split 2 games against maybe the best team in the NBA without a bunch of key rotation players. And you're finding out some great things about some of the players that have maybe had their usage suppressed or maybe just weren't playing early in the year. So I have a hard time getting, yes, the clutch time stuff, totally get it. But I have a hard time getting too worked up about that game last night because in the end, you fought your ass off, super shorthanded. And you were super shorthanded last week when you played these guys, and you won that game wire to wire. So I actually kind of come away thinking, bring on the Thunder in a playoff series. Now, what do the Wolves look like when they reintegrate all these pieces together? Who the hell knows? But I'm going to say feisty. Feisty. Dex.
The vibes are swinging. They're swinging just back and forth all the dang time.
Yeah.
I was in the building and gets off to a great start. The Wolves they get up to a win up 11-5 to start. OKC calls a timeout. Then the Thunder just go on this absurd run where they are absolutely balling over the Wolves. And then the Timberwolves are trailing by like 20 points midway through the second quarter. And then they go on a 20-2 run. It was nuts, like watching the pendulum swing back and forth in that game. And I mean, if you kind of, my buddy Kyle, who took me to the game, who I usually go with, he is a season ticket holder. If you look at like what the Wolves did against the Thunder, they shot 43% from the floor, 40% from 3. They out-rebounded them 44-37. The Thunder just made every single 3-pointer, it felt like, throughout that entire game, man. They shot 54% from 3-point land last night. That is an absurd clip to hit. So, I mean, it was a game they probably should have still won, but when you look at the totality and the Jaylen Clark injury, which was, a huge bummer, no Rudy, which I think we'll get into throughout this podcast, the vibes are just swinging because you thought coming out of the break with them starting to play better basketball, and even though they had a tough stretch coming out of the break against the Thunder, Lakers, Rockets, etc., you thought that they would be able to show up a little bit more, but back-to-back losses still stings you.
I was far more concerned about the Houston loss on Friday than this one. Like the Rockets game, they could have won. And look, there's a conversation, and we've certainly talked about this a little bit before, but there's a conversation too about the clutch time play of Ant.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, that's a huge, like that's probably, if you want to identify one reason why the Wolves are 15-21 in clutch time games, that is probably A and B, right? The fact
and
that
it's
like,
and it makes
different. Sorry.
And it makes it even more frustrating because, like you said, like you've laid out all the numbers, 15 and 21. I laid out the net rating. It's like if you could clean, I don't think anyone's asking for you to be this like mid 90s Bulls perfect clutch time operation, because you do have a bunch of young players and you're trying to work through some growing pains. But it's some of these just bad early shot clock shots. It's also, in fairness to Ant, so Ant has not been great in these situations, but he's also like oftentimes creating looks for guys, and the Wolves miss so many open shots. And I guess that can dovetail into the next category, which is your least favorite current Wolves thing, and then we'll wrap it with a positive in the last category. I am so conflicted on Jaden McDaniels because in so many ways his game is blossoming. Last night, they're asking him with Gobert out, he's playing the 5 at times. Like Naz Reid has been kind of thrust back into playing the 5, but he's being asked to like do these things and step up his usage. 13 more rebounds last night. Hey, we needed a rebound. Okay, like he's been rebounding since the first of the year, and it's awesome. Since Julius Randle went down, he's averaging like 18 points, 10 rebounds. Like there's a real evolution of his game. Close range scoring, you see some aggressiveness. But then it's like, hey, here's 3 wide open threes that we need you to bury like 1 or 2 of these, and the game might be different. And he struggles. So I was digging before the show here, just like, man, anecdotally, it feels like corner threes are, if they were just like a better corner 3-point shooting team, it doesn't cover up all the other things that lead to their clutch time losses, but it feels like it makes a big difference. But boy, if the Wolves would have knocked down just 2 of those like 8 wide open corner threes that they missed, maybe the game's different. So coming into tonight's back-to-back against Oklahoma City, the Wolves are 25th in the NBA in corner 3-point make percentage. They're one of the worst corner 3-point percentage teams in the league. So here's some math for you. And by the way, I bring up Jaden McDaniels because this is like the one major kryptonite to his game. If he could become a consistent corner 3-point shooter, he would be undervalued at $25 million a year. We debate like his contract, right? If the Wolves were to go from 25th in the league to even like fringe top 10 in corner 3-point make percentage, they would jump from 20th to top half of the league in scoring offense. If they were to go from 25th in corner 3-point make percentage to one of the best teams, let's say they were like, boom, all of a sudden they're like the 3rd best team shooting corner threes, they'd be a top 10 scoring offense in the league, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. So it's, you could say, well, the solution is, I guess you got to just put guys out. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo helps fix this when he's out there more often. But Jaden offers so many other things too. It's kind of a Chris Finch puzzle to solve, short and long term. So I guess my least favorite current Wolves thing is they can't make a corner 3 to save their lives. And it's super glaring in some of these games where you lose by that Bucks game, for instance. Didn't they lose that game by a point or whatever it was to that depleted Bucks team? I mean, they clanked countless wide open 3-pointers, most of them from the corner in that game. So that's the most frustrating thing to watch right now. And they by the way, they hit like 40% of their threes overall. It wasn't like a glaring issue as much last night. And Nikhil was knocking down a bunch of shots. But on the season, it's been one of the biggest downfalls of their offense. Yeah,
the Jaden thing is, it feels like one, it's got to be an area of focus this summer, but outside of that, it feels like he brings a lot of things. That's just not one. And so I agree. It's going to be, for now, it's a Finch thing to solve. Like, you've got to solve this because he is valuable. He's proven he can be extremely active and do a lot of good things. But when you just put him there to shoot threes, it's not good.
He, by the way, even more on the numbers here, half of his 3-point attempts are from the corner, and he is shooting 30% on those. It's almost to the point where, and maybe because for his career, he actually came into the season shooting like 38% from the corner. So you could say he's just going through like a season-long slump from the corner. I would almost rather him pass up the wide open three and just, especially if you're wide open, get into a closer range and maybe get to the rim, or maybe you pull another defender and you find somebody else wide open. It's like, unless you think he's going to shoot through it, it's almost to the point where he should stop taking those shots and just find your way in some other way to get to the free throw line or whatever maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mine is this. It's Ant. It's Ant and his propensity for technical fouls. He's now up to 14 with the, again, unnecessary as hell. And as they pointed out on the ESPN telecast, he's very fortunate he didn't get ejected because he got the tee and then he was clapping in the official's face after that, which could have been a second tee, which would put him at 15. But he is now 2 technicals shy of a 1-game suspension. And then every 2 technicals after that, he gets another game suspension. So like he's going to be in the jackpot. If the Timberwolves were running away in a playoff spot, okay, it would be disturbing, but it'd be like, okay, but they're really, really sound. They're set. But like these last, 25, 24 games are going to be critically important because you want no part of the play-in if you can get out of the play-in. And at the rate this kid is going now, he's going to miss 1 or 2 games because he can't help himself from, look, I know, dude, you're getting fouled at times. And to your credit, it feels like in the last about 2 months or so, he is going to the basket a lot more. So he's getting fouled more, and a lot of those are called. Some of those aren't. But you cannot just take a technical and get mad and melt down. And by the way, also at times quit playing. So defensively, you're out of the play because you're upset. It's ridiculous. And the fact that he leads the NBA, a league that has Draymond Green in it. He leads the NBA in techs and is 2 away from a suspension. Every game Ant misses is going to be crucial. That is my least favorite Timberwolves.
Do we trust him to, because he'll get one more just doing his Ant thing here, maybe even tonight. Do we trust him once he's up against, you said if he gets one more, he's at 15. The 16th is an automatic suspension, right? And then
18 is another suspension.
So he has one more freebie. He's got one more technical foul to give, basically.
Yes.
Do we trust his self-restraint in the last 2 months? No. Think he's going to get suspended?
Yeah.
Even Mike, I mean, it was visible. I was in 200 level, but like center court. And Mike was doing his absolute best to calm him down to the Judd's point where he almost got the second one, where Mike had to step in and be like, dude, drop it and move on, relax, go to the bench. Let's not dig ourselves a deeper hole here. That's going to come at the worst possible time too. I mean, Draymond's situation was always a thing to watch with his technical fouls. And if the Wolves lose Ant for a playoff game or for a very critical regular season game when it comes to seeding, like that's going to be a huge ball breaker.
It does reset. So once the season is done, the playoffs are anew. So he can get as many as he wants until there is, I'm sure, a stat that he could be suspended at. But anyway,
it's 7, by the way. In the playoffs, you reset and then you get 6 freebies until you're 7th.
Anyway, long story short, just grow up, quit taking technicals, and you should drive to the rim. And I'm glad that you are, but you have to accept that sometimes they're just going to miss calls.
Yeah, it is. It's so tough, man, because you watch him and, it's a lot of star players. Luka Doncic is the worst offender. And Nikola Jokic literally does like the shrug emoji, backing his way down the court, just yelling at officials. But, like this goes back ages. And at some point you have to show some self-restraint here. And
it's this that drives me crazy. It's this when you're clapping in the official's face, you're asking to be ejected.
Yeah, it's pretty. I love the intensity. I love the fact that he gets up for big games, but there's definitely some refining. We're also we're hyper analyzing these dudes at 23, 24 in a way that continues to evolve generation after generation. So I even have to stop myself. I get annoyed at his lack of maturity, but he's also 23. Right. So I try to balance, you got to be better in these areas. Clutch time, shot selection, not clapping in the face of officials.
Right.
I also think in 2 or 3 years, he's going to be a much more refined version. So there's some patience involved. But yeah, you can't get suspended for a key
That's
game
what I was
against.
gonna say. If dude wants to drop F-bombs post game and get fined, knock yourself out.
But
Grow
isn't
up,
that all
don't
kind of
grow
part
up.
of the immaturity?
Yes, but
Like
I'm saying
he says whatever he wants, and
but he's being fined. I don't care about that. What you just said is if he gets to 16 texts, and now like every game's important now. And if he's out, okay, then
he has constructive criticism here. I think he's going to be the dominant offensive force of the NBA for the next, like he'll be in that mix for 7 more years, and he'll be a better version in 3 years than he is now. Also, at age 23, he has a really, really bad problem with self-policing language in the postgame. Even if you think I'm a prude by saying that, self-policing how he speaks to officials, self-policing his shot selection in clutch time. And these are all things that just kind of fall into the maturity bin, and you hope that they iron themselves out over the course of his mid-20s. It is fair criticism, especially if he gets suspended, because now you're shipwrecking your team
right
with all these other injuries.
Right.
Okay, before we get to favorite current Wolves
thing.
Dex.
Dex, least favorite thing. Sorry, Dex, go.
You're good. Least favorite thing is the presence of no Rudy Gobert on defense makes life incredibly difficult, especially like watching the game from that like higher angle. Like same thing like when I go to a hockey game, like when you're in the press box or when you're in the 200 level like the X, like the game looks a lot slower from up there. But you can see without the presence of this monster of a man, and he drives you nuts at times. I get it. His hands are hands of stone, and he can't catch a pass sometimes, and it's very baffling. But when you remove the chess piece of him from your defensive game, it makes life so much more difficult. Now, Jaden McDaniels is playing the 5, and Naz Reid's starting, and spoiler alert, it's probably going to be my favorite thing, but without Rudy, it's this crazy trickle-down effect where your defense becomes a huge problem. And like the Thunder, even though they were nailing a ton of three-pointers last night, they had 46 points in the paint. The Wolves only have 32 points in the paint. You saw what it looks like when you don't have the freak of nature and Rudy Gobert in the paint for you offensively and defensively, and then the trickle down just to of your entire defense as a whole. No Rudy Gobert makes life very difficult, I think, for the Wolves.
Yeah, here's some data to sort of back up that point. So in the 3 games he's been sidelined, small sample size, and you played the same team in 2 of those 3 games, so grain of salt here. But the Wolves are giving up 117 points per game in these 3 games he's been out. That would rank 25th in the NBA defensively. When he's on the court versus off the court just for the season, so like, when he's resting for 8 minutes or whatever in the second quarter, the Wolves have a 109 defensive net rating when Rudy is on the court, which is the best of any Wolves player. And that would be the equivalent of the 3rd best net rating defense in the NBA when he's on the court. And I saw this on Twitter this morning. Hardwood Paroxysm put out a great nugget. Rudy Gobert has the best on-off differential of opponent attempts at the rim this season. So opponents just don't try him at the rim. You see sometimes he gets out jumped for a rebound, or he winds up on a poster because he's just there. But the amount of times he prevents a team from even trying the rim, and it's hard to quantify that unless you dig really deep into the NBA statistical database. We've been calling them neverminds on Flagrant Howls for the last 3 seasons. And he also has the 4th best rim defense via NBA.com's tracking data too. So when teams do try him, he is great. And teams don't try him because they don't want to deal with it. And it's just kind of something you see the passes that ricochet off his hands, or you see the weird Rudy plays, and it frustrates you. And you don't see the things that he is great at impacting. But they also, offensively, they're much more up and down, high energy, well-oiled machine, and they can space a lot better too. So there's a middle ground here between don't need him. He's a clunky, plotting minus on offense. There definitely is a huge value to him on the court, and maybe the answer long term is 27 minutes instead of 34, or 25 minutes instead of 36.
Right. But on the defensive end, he's a monster. You're exactly right. You don't necessarily quantify it, And the problem is the things he doesn't do well are on display for everyone. Everyone, right? He can't catch a ball. It's like, that's typical. But when you take him out, it changes your defensive dynamic. I would say this. When the playoffs start, if you don't have Gobert, that is arguably, aside from Ant, your biggest loss.
Yeah.
Playoff wise. Like if you're without Julius, Dante, who I like a lot, but like if you are, and Conley, I think those three losses aren't as big as Gobert in the playoffs.
Yeah, you would have to win a completely different way. You would have to become a team that scores 125 points instead of, because now you can win a lot of games scoring 110, and you'd have to find a way. I've been trying to think of like cross sport comparisons for what he is. He's like the cornerback on defense in the NFL that teams don't try.
Thought of that, yes.
He's like a great game calling, game managing catcher in baseball, where there's been a few of these guys. Yadier Molina was like this for a long time, where they frame, which is going to be irrelevant now that we've got a challenge system.
Yep.
They frame pitch. They do these things that don't really, I guess now we can quantify framing pitches, but they know exactly what pitch based on the scouting report gets this guy out. And he hits 220 with like 11 home runs. You're like, he doesn't really do anything offensively. Yeah, but that pitcher has a 3.5 ERA because he's back there guiding him through the game. So yeah, these 3 games have been a glimpse into the offense, definitely a little more free flowing and smooth, and you can put some shooters out there and whatever. But you do miss having his presence on defense. Okay, we'll get to our favorite current Wolves things here in a moment. One of our favorite current Wolves things is Kieran's across the street from Target Center. Definitely,
great spot. Great spot for game day specials to go pre or post game for the Timberwolves. Old Dex tweets was burning the midnight oil, so he wasn't able to get a post stop in at Kieran's last night on a Sunday evening. But it's a great spot to check out before and after every Wolves game. You can go check out their game day specials. They have great taps, award-winning pours at Kieran's, plus great food as well. Go check out Kieran's. It's just steps away from Target Center and also Target Field as we get closer to Twins season. Go check out Kieran's, just steps away from the Target Center and Target Field.
All right, MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air also helping to power Flagrant Howls here this Monday, Judley.
Absolutely true. In fact, they're going to take care of, as Phil just said, all your plumbing, heating, cooling, and drain needs. 100% family-owned and operated business that is committed to taking care of you and your family. That's the most important thing. There, you see the truck pulling up right there. Building trust, a big part of how they do their business. And when it comes to your home, nothing is more important than making sure it's safe. Guess what? MSP is coming out to the Sports Dad's house to check it out, to make sure it's safe. Because you know what? I practice what I preach. And how about this one? They are giving away a free furnace this month. Book a $49 furnace tune-up, and you'll be entered to win a free furnace. You must book the tune-up this month to be entered to win as well. For service, give them a call, 651-615-4292, or check out their website. That is callmsp.com. Callmsp.com. I am looking forward to making sure that my furnace, the plumbing, everything at the Sports Dad estate is in good and working order.
Amen. Okay, Judd, give us your favorite current Wolves thing.
I'm going full stand here. I'm going full stand for Jaylen Clark again. I think I've talked about it before, but I mean, my God, this kid has stepped in and look, I get the reluctance of Finch to play some guys at times. To me, it's a little bit over the top, but this guy has stepped in and has gained immediate trust. And it's not because he can knock down shots, which, by the way, he can. He was going, I believe he was like 4 or 4 or 5 for 5 from the field. Yeah, he was fantastic before he unfortunately spiked his head off the floor, which he did only because he plays so damn hard. But defensively, I mean, let's talk about this, you guys. Let's talk about what this young man brings. I think there is a fighting chance, revisionist history here, that the Timberwolves win that game last night if Jaylen Clark does not get hurt. He is in, and I mean, we're not talking, he comes in and plays hard against certain guys. SGA, he was in the dude's face. It was fantastic. Jaylen Clark, man, you are the type of player that a foundational piece that championship teams absolutely need. So my favorite thing, and I certainly hope that he's fine and he didn't suffer a concussion, but my favorite thing is that this guy plays his ass off, and it looks like every game is a playoff game. Good for him.
He did tweet last night that, hey, thanks for the well wishes, everyone. I'm fine. I guess I haven't seen if he got on a plane or if they kept him back, because I think they classified it as a neck injury because he had a little bit of like whiplash, but his head hit the court.
His head hit the floor pretty hard. I mean, he plays 1,000 miles per hour too. Good for him.
Yeah. Why didn't they usually? So he goes down,
and
the possession continued, and the Wolves hit a corner three, and he's like laying on the ground, and they let the Thunder go back 5-on-4 the other way, and it took like an awkward amount of time for the game to stop and for a trainer to get out there.
And the Wolves got called. Yeah, the Wolves got called for a foul. Like on the and Jaylen Clark's like, God is my witness. He's broken in half underneath the basket, and they're just letting him play on.
That's super weird. And then it stops, and like I think Minot kind of wandered over there, like poking with a stick to see
Ingles.
Joe Ingles.
Joe's like shaking him. Get up.
And the trainer's like, dude, don't touch him. Right?
Guys, get away from them.
But he did tweet. But so was it Ant that hit that corner three on that possession? Someone hit a three, and the Wolves went up 85-78. So they were up by 7. This is third quarter.
Yeah.
And at that point, they had outscored the Thunder by 20 points in the 18 minutes with Jaylen Clark on the floor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point forward, the Wolves were outscored by 14 then with him off the court for the rest of the game. But he now, after last night, Jaylen Clark leads all Wolves players in net rating on the court versus off the court. So who has the biggest presence on net rating? Jaylen Clark is number 1 on the team. Number 2 is Naz Reid. Number 3 is Nikhil, who was awesome last night, at least for a stretch. Mike Conley is 4th. It's a lesser version of Conley, but things kind of click into place at times when he's on the court. And then Anthony Edwards rounds out the top 5. But yeah, it is crazy. And to the shooting aspect, Jaylen Clark is shooting 42% from 3. That was the biggest question coming out of college. Well, besides the Achilles, was all right. We know he can play clamps defense. Like, what is his role? Is he an NBA player offensively in some form? And man, if he's going to give you this level of defense and versatility and energy, and if he can just like get to the rim once in a while and be a fast break player and hit some open threes,
he's a no money. He's a disruptor.
Yeah, I don't think he's playing tonight, but get him back as soon as possible. And once DiVincenzo comes back, you got to find 15, 18 minutes still for Jaylen Clark, right? You have to.
And I think they will.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, my favorite current Wolves thing is your Naz Reid as a starting player update. So it's now been, he got banged up like in the second quarter of that Wizards game. So he didn't, I'm going to throw that game out just because it wasn't a full game. So 9 games since that injury as a starter. So the question is long term, because he's going to decline the player option, become a free agent. Is Naz Reid a starting caliber 36 minutes per night player, right? That's the question for the Wolves. And I mean, Naz Reid's going to, if the Wolves don't give him those 36 minutes, somebody else is going to give him $25 or $30 million to play, right? So you're finding out. Well, he's averaging 37 minutes a game in these 9 starts. He went a little cold last night from the field, but overall in those 9 games, Naz Reid is averaging 21.5 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, a steal, and he's shooting 48% from the field and shooting 36% from 3 on high volume, 8 attempts per game. I don't know what more evidence we need to show that this dude is a 34, 35, 36 minutes per night force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been awesome in the starting lineup, and I hope when Julius does come back here in a couple games, they bring Julius off the bench, man. Like I don't know how you take this out of the starting lineup from Naz with the production you're getting.
Yeah, and the important thing to me is you clearly want and should want Naz to stay. Well, like if I'm going to have a player get a little bit emotionally upset, right? Let's see, Julius, who can opt out, or Naz Reid, who I want to keep.
Yeah.
To me, this is now a very easy decision. This is not difficult.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch him blossom. Now they have lost 4 of their last 5 games with him in the starting lineup, but they're also like their depth is razor thin. You got Rudy's been missing from the defensive side too. Yeah,
like Naz is doing his best to play a position he shouldn't have to play. But the fact is, if you like, we're like, okay, Naz, Julius is out now. Let's see what you got. He has given you everything.
Yeah, I think too, like the fact that he's in there, he's not necessarily known. He's more of a perimeter big than he is. Came in the league heavier and was more of a 4-5. Now he's more of like a 3-4. But the fact that he's still blocking shots, you increase the minutes load, and he's still kind of a rim protector in some ways, even if he's like helping instead of being a primary defender. So, Dex, your favorite current Wolves thing?
Yeah, I mean, I love what Naz brings. Honestly, this is kind of funny, but you go to a Wolves game, you see things in person that maybe you can't really see on the court. I thought it was hilarious how fired up Luka Garza got when he hit that 3-pointer. I mean, you would have thought he hit that sucker with a couple seconds left in a NCAA tournament game. He was fired up, and he has to play again because of the injuries we just talked about. But it's funny when you go to games and you see things. Same thing with like Joe Ingles checking on a lifeless Jaylen Clark. Like you don't see this stuff on
They have a great
TV.
bench. It's a great bench.
So it's funny to see those things in person that maybe you don't see. And honestly, I know the Target Center crowd was chanting free throw merchant. Not sure if that came through the TV broadcast for you guys. That came through a few times, although I don't think Shea got to the line that much. And also, the Wolves were great. Wolves missed 1 free throw last night. They were getting to the line and hitting all of their free throw attempts. So just going to a game, experiencing the Timberwolves vibes at Target Center are always a fun time.
Even on a night where it didn't seem like SGA got to the free throw line a lot, he still slithered his way there for 11 attempts, 8 of 11. Because that's what he is. He's him and Joel Embiid.
He loves that chant.
Mount Rushmore of free throw immersions.
He starts laughing too. It's great.
Yeah, he's pretty. But this is why I don't fear a 7-game series against this team, because the Wolves have so many guys they can run at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander defensively. You can it's not like you have one guy that you have to stick on him and that's your only option. You could run Anthony Edwards at him for a stretch. You could run Jaden McDaniels at him. You can run Jaylen Clark, Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
I texted you both last night. There are some things I think in a series that OKC puts on film that I think are very disruptible in the playoffs. They do a lot, like they are talented and they're good, but there's little things. Like they love to get cute in the paint. They've got these intricate passing plays in the paint. And this is where Jaylen Clark, right? He's not going to put up with that. He's not going to put up with that at all.
I need a Judd basketball film breakdown on a future episode of Flagrant Howls.
Series are
all 22 style.
Series in hockey and basketball are all about the film.
Well, I think Jaylen Clark seems like the type of guy that could, after about like the second quarter of game 3, could really irritate. And not his personality is very friendly, but just the tenaciousness of his style of play. Always there. And plus, if you have, it's a different series by a mile defensively if Gobert is clogging the lane defensively for you. I kind of be careful what you wish for, but I kind of want to see these two. I kind of want to see these two teams in a 7-game series. I'm just telling you guys right now, I was on the couch watching it and I'm like starting to break things down. And then I'm like, hold on a second here. There's some tells. We should start a YouTube channel where Judd just breaks down basketball film. And so right now, if they were to, let's say they were to lose to the Mavericks in the first playing game and then they win, they would get Oklahoma City. There's a definite, it would be kind of a buzzkill path because you don't want the Wolves to have to play in like the second play-in game for their chances. Right. But there is a chance the way the standings are shaping up here. So, and by the way, after this game tonight, they get the Lakers, and after that, the schedule gets, knock on wood, because the Wolves, we've seen them play down to anyone's level, but the easiest schedule in the NBA for the rest of the year kicks in after these next 2 games. So
Yeah.
climb yo ass up the standings, Timberwolves.
Just don't get suspended, Ant. Don't get those 2 more
Self-restraint.
checks. Don't
Some
do it, Ant.
self-restraint.
Don't you do it.
All right, he's the sports dad, Judd. He's producer, Declan. And I am Phil. This is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. Flagrant Howls. See you guys.